and welcome back to the channel of cheerful autumnal nonsense, and it's proper grade A nonsense today because I'm reviewing a car that is so new it's already old. Yeah, it's the BMW iX3, but don't get too excited, you can't buy it already. It's gone off sale and they've changed it. Is then the iX3 that you can no longer buy because this car has been out for a few years in the rest of the world, but it's only just come out in the UK and it's been facelifted before it's come out, and this is a pre-facelift one, so I think it's going to be a bit of a collector's item. Maybe? I don't know. It's a £61,000 car this. It's a Premier Edition Pro. It's been replaced by the M Sport Pro, and the facelift will give it slightly slimmer headlights, a slightly bigger grille, and all of this aero closed stuff around the front and these aerodynamic 20-inch wheels, they've been scrapped for ones that just look sporty rather than, you know, the smoothed off face of aerodynamicness. So yeah, if you go and buy one of these, it probably won't look like this, to be honest. Anyway, you can tell it's electric because it's got green bits on the number plates, it's got a blue bit around the BMW badge, and it's got wheels that look a little bit orthopedic despite being massive 20-inch items. It's got an I badge on the side. Yeah, this is just an X3 really that has been electrified. Have a look in the charging flap, then I can talk about the battery. You've got flippy flaps there for a fast charger. This can charge up to 150 kilowatts on a fast charger. Now, all iX3s get the same 74 kilowatt hour battery, which is good for a range of 280 miles on paper or 220 miles in my real world testing. But you get a single motor on the rear axle, which is about 280 horsepower, good for 0 to 62 in 6.8 seconds. So it's not absolutely rapid, and it's not a dual motor, and it's not got absolutely massive range. Obviously we've had the BMW iX, the range topping one, come out since then with loads more range than this, like another 140 miles of range, but obviously it costs more money. Now this has got some shadow line trims on it, so you've got all these gloss black bits around the windows, around the mirrors, around the doors, and the black roof rails. And this one has a sunroof, which is so exciting I might start limping around the countryside. Anyway, looks like an X3 from the back, but without the exhaust pipes. You've got an iX3 badge there, Premier Edition, which again you won't ever see again. The boot is quite funny. No, it's not actually really funny. What is quite interesting though is 510 litres in here, which is 10 litres bigger than the one in the flagship iX, which is weird. This has got a bigger boot than its supposedly bigger brother, and you've got some space under the floor there for stuff. You've got a power socket there, you've got curry hooks, you've got a thing to fold the rear seats down there and there. It's a boot. It's quite big. So this is a practical electric car, as you might expect from being based on a practical non-electric car. Now let's hop inside and see if the fact that this is based on a petrol car hinders interior space. Now, for some weird reason you blindfolded me and held this floor mat up to my face, I'd be able to tell you this is a BMW, because BMW's press workshop always hoovers little lines into the carpets, because that obviously persuades journalists to give it an extra star. Right, this is the back seat space. Give you a quick look before I jump in, and I'm jumping in. Right, this is going to be quite an easy one. I've got loads of headroom. I have got quite a bit of knee room, and my feet, even in my clumpy boots, fit under the seat. So yeah, the rear seat space is pretty good considering this is based on a combustion car. If I close the door, I can still see out. It's really low, so your kids won't feel car sick, which is quite important. And it feels quite nice in here. Everything's kind of leathery, and it's got window switches for electric windows. It's got a little X there. I don't know if you can see that. I'm not sure why that's there. I've got two USB-Cs down there, and I've got heating controls back here. It's pretty decent, to be honest. It's quite roomy. It could be lighter, but I've got the little blind on the sunroof shut at the moment, because I'm an idiot. Right, anyway, let's look at the front seats. Not the seats, the dashboard. The front seats aren't that interesting. Up front is pretty straightforward because it is ripped off entirely from the standard X3, which means it's quite good, to be honest. You've got a round steering wheel, which has got quite a slow rack on it, so you do have to twiddle it a lot to do tight turns. You've got your lane keeping, semi-autonomous driving stuff on there. You've got a dashboard which you can customize a little bit. It's not very exciting, to be honest. You can see your average kilowatts per mile, I mean kilowatt hours per mile, don't I? And I've been getting 3.1. So if you do multiplication, this has got a 74 kilowatt hour battery. Yeah, this will do about 220, 230 miles on a charge. Now I've been doing a lot of motorway stuff, sitting at 70. The infotainment system is BMW's iDrive. It is not the latest one. It's not the all singing, all dancing one from the iX and another BMW I can't yet talk about. It's got sat nav, it's got wireless CarPlay, it's got everything you need, it's easy to use, it's just not quite as sexy as the newest system, which has got lots of pretty graphics and other things that you probably will never use. You've got a blue gear shift knob because it's electric, your driving mode's got Sport, Comfort, Eco, Pro, you can turn the stability and traction control off, cameras, electronic handbrake, iDrive controller. Is dead straightforward. You don't get really much in the way of sexy materials. You just get piano black plastic, which, as we all know, scratches like Craig David on a student night on the decks. Does that make sense? I'm too old to do things like that. That is softy firmy, but it feels nice. It's got a head-up display down there, and this one's got a calm and hard-on sound system, which sounds pretty decent. But yeah, it's all kind of last generation BMW stuff, but to be honest, that's better than most other people's current generation stuff. And a big blue start-stop button. And it's got wireless charging. Right, that's enough about the interior of the iX3. Let's take it for a drive and find out if it feels like a BMW, if it feels comfortable, if it feels at all sporty, and if it's quick enough, and if it's quiet enough on the motorway. All that coming up after the break. Insert Manscaped commercial here. Right, let's go for a drive in the iX3. Foot on the brake, hit the start button, and it goes boom and thrums into life. Now, as standard, you get a thing that makes a different noise to the outside world than the standard car. To be honest, I've not really noticed it. So anyway, into gear, and it creeps away. And it also bongs at me because I accidentally did a gesture control. Oh, another BMW review where I get to flick the V's at the screen. Excellent little tug of the seatbelt to give you a little reassurance as you set off. And yeah, first impressions are, it rides pretty well. Now, I should caveat by saying, although this does smother out most bumps on the road, it does have a little bit of that old school EV jiggliness that you get, where it's just like the slight sense there's like water sloshing around in the floor of the car. It's not terrible, and it's certainly better than most EVs, but you never forget this is a 2.2 ton car, especially when you boot it on a muddy road like that, and the back tries to step out and the stability control kicks in, because sending 400 newton-meters of torque to those back wheels on a slippery road is not something physics really does very well. So yeah, don't worry, you probably can drift it if you unplug something and turn stability control off, but in its standard form, this is a confidence-inspiring car to drive. Just don't forget, it ain't four-wheel drive, so it won't pull you out of a muddy field like that tractor that I just nearly crashed into. Right, is it quick? Yeah, nah, it's all sort of brisk. That 6.8 knots 60 time, yeah, it's quick off the line, and then it kind of dies down a bit. But once you're up to 50 again and you put your foot down, you do get a pretty decent amount of shove, and like changing lanes on the motorway, all that kind of stuff. This is really quite punchy at the highest speeds. It's got good mid-range acceleration, that's what I'm trying to say. It's just, you know, not going to give your friends a really impressive sensation away from the line. They might be expecting Tesla speed and they're not going to get it. Right, am I going to get stuck in this muddy puddle to let this van driver go past? Hopefully not. Oh God, yeah. It really doesn't want to accelerate on slippery surfaces like mud. It just cuts the power instantly. You're like, oh, I'm not moving at all, because the torque kicks in so instantly, the stability control and the traction control also kick in instantly. Right, anyway, let's talk about sensible, boring stuff. You've got really big door mirrors, but they don't give you loads of wind noise on the motorway. But they are huge. You could see planets in them, and that's great. And obviously you sit up high because it's an SUV, so I can see over these hedges that I can pull out safely, which is very handy, because if I was in a saloon car, I genuinely struggled to get out of that junction. So people slag off SUVs, but they are useful for some things. The steering doesn't really have much feel to it, but you know, it's a family SUV, you don't expect it to feel like a Caterham. And the accelerator and brake work perfectly naturally. And actually the accelerator response is a very, very boring thing to talk about, but it is better than in the new iX, which has a little step before it gives you full power. This just feels like a normal car to drive. View out the back is fine, all the side windows are big. The mirror up here is not rimless, but it is big, so you can see out the back. And yeah, you can see where the front of the car is because there's a bonnet. It's a great feature that on cars. More cars should do that. Anyway, enough waffling. I'm going to get up to motorway speeds, prove that it's quiet at motorway speeds, and then go down a twisty road to see if it's any fun. I've done too much talking, I'm sorry. All right, let's get up to motorway speed then, round here. Foot down, the back steps out a little bit, and that's 70 miles an hour. And the engine noise is a vague electrical thrum. It's not the fancy Hans Zimmer produced noise that you get in the new iX. But yeah, 70 miles an hour on a motorway. A, it's really comfortable. It's nice and soft over bumps. B, it's pretty quiet as well. It's a very good car for doing big miles in. And I've done quite a lot of motorway stuff to various airports in the past week and a half, and this has been a really good companion for doing that in. I should also talk about the engine braking. So you have no paddles to adjust it on the back of the steering wheel. You can flop the dildo over into B and it will give you a fair bit of engine braking, but really it just uses its sensors and cameras and things to work out how much engine braking to give you when you lift off the accelerator. So if there's a car in front or a speed limit change, it sort of knows, and you lift off and it kind of coasts you down. It's not as advanced as the same system in the iX, which has got longer range radar, more sensors, yada yada yada, but it's a decent impression of it, to be fair. Right, I've been very boring, so let's get to the twisty roads and see if it's any fun to drive. Why are you bonging at me? Oh, you thought I was muting you again with my gestures. Right, I'm getting to my country road now. I put it into sport mode, which has basically just made the steering go heavy, really. This car's supposedly got adaptive dampers, but you can't configure them individually. I can't really feel a huge amount of difference in comfort and sport, if any difference, so I'm not sure it really has got them. But anyway, I'm going to go from a 30 mile an hour limit into a 60 in sport mode about now. Mid-range punch is good, and that is 60, so it is quick. Like I said, mid-range acceleration is impressive. And what's also quite nice is that when you get onto a twisty road and you accelerate out of a corner, you can feel the motor at the back kind of pushing the back round. It feels rear-wheel drive like a BMW should, and I know it's still an SUV, so it's not going to be exactly setting your hair on fire with entertainment, but it drives a lot more tidily, I can't believe I said that, than most electric SUVs. It's just feels more BMW-y, and I mean that in that the steering, the accelerator and everything just works together to make it quite fun. It stays quite flat in corners, it's not particularly wallowy. When you hit a bump, you do sense the mass, and over kind of larger oomps, if they're in the middle of a corner, it does get a bit and you're aware of that 2.2 tons, but otherwise, it's really quite good to drive. I'm very impressed, well done BMW. The brakes are good, there's no weird sensation between the physical brakes and the recuperative electric brakes working. They just feel like brakes, frankly, and you know that they're putting some energy back into the battery, which is always good. Around here, yeah, it's got loads of grip. You could drive this very quickly on a country road if you weren't stuck behind the world's oldest Audi Q5 full of mangy dogs, which I am. Anyway, that's probably enough about the way the iX3 drives. It's very competent, very quiet, very hushed on the motorways. It's got decent range, and it's actually quite entertaining to drive quickly. It's not going to bore the various bits and pieces off of your chest. I just caught myself there. Anyway, back to you, Tim, for an outro. So in conclusion, what do I think of the BMW iX3? Well, let's get this out of the way first. It's a very good electric SUV that feels very familiar the second you get inside it. I don't think the interior is as special as the Mercedes EQC, but I think this will go further on a charge, and it's better to drive. Now, the interior, feeling familiar is good, but don't go and drive the new BMW iX if you're gonna get one of these, because the iX feels amazing inside. It's like sitting in Dame Edna Everidge's codpiece. This just feels a little bit normal, but for the money, you can't really argue against this. This is one of the few cars I've driven which have been turned from a combustion car into an electric car on the same platform that doesn't really feel compromised by it. Yes, you've got a little bit of tunnel in the middle between the back seats where it raises up, and again in the front, so it's not quite as roomy as something like a Hyundai Ioniq 5, but if you want the BMW badge and you don't want to spend 70 grand on a base level iX, this is a pretty good car. It's got a decent amount of range, you can charge it quite quickly, and it's decent car. I'd give it 8 out of 10 thumbs up. Anyway, hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, hit like. If it's been really useless, hit like as well. If you've hated every moment and wanted your eyes to turn into little spiders, also hit like and subscribe, and leave me a comment calling me a tarantula or something like that. Anyway, enough nonsense. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. See you next time.